The forest was silent that morning. Not the peaceful kind of silence, but the thick, eerie quiet that comes when danger hangs in the air. A narrow ravine cut through the undergrowth like a wound. Jagged rocks and twisted roots lined its steep walls. Below, water gushed angrily, turning anything that fell into it into driftwood, or worse. It was here that Arun, a 38-year-old forest volunteer and animal tracker, heard it. A soft, broken cry. Faint. Repeating. He paused. He'd been patrolling the forest edges near a wildlife corridor known for leopard activity. But this sound, it wasn't from an adult predator. It was desperate, fragile. He crept closer and peered down. There, clinging to a ledge no wider than a dinner plate, was a leopard cub. Tiny, no more than 2 months old, soaked in mud and trembling. It had likely slipped and fallen, stranded midway down the ravine. The mother was nowhere in sight. Aaron didn't hesitate. He secured a rope around a tree and slowly lowered himself down. The mud was slippery, and every step had to be precise. One wrong move, and both he and the cub would be gone. Reaching the ledge, he steadied himself. The cub hissed weakly, but didn't run. Too tired to fight, too scared to move. He extended a hand, slowly, gently. The cub blinked, then let out one final cry as Arun wrapped it in a cloth sling and began the slow climb back up. Sweat poured down his face. His arms shook. But 20 minutes later, he emerged from the ravine, breathless and muddy, holding a life that had almost been lost. But the forest wasn't finished with him yet, not by a long shot. As Arun stood catching his breath, the cub in his arms stirred, weak but alive. Then he heard it, rustling in the tall grass. Sharp, fast, urgent. He turned and froze. Less than 20 feet away, eyes burning with fury and fear, was the cub's mother, a full-grown female leopard, muscular, silent, deadly. She was crouched low, tail twitching, golden eyes locked on the man holding her child. In the wild, nothing is more dangerous than a mother defending her young. Aaron's heart pounded. He'd read about leopard attacks. He knew the statistics, but nothing prepares you for the moment when instinct and survival collide. He lowered the cub gently onto the ground. The mother snarled, low and guttural. Aaron took a step back. Then, silence. The leopard moved slowly forward. Her eyes never left his. She paused, sniffed the air, and approached her cub. She nuzzled it, licked the mud from its fur. The cub mewed and leaned into her. But then, something impossible happened. Instead of whisking the cub away into the underbrush, she looked back at Arun. For a few long seconds, predator and man locked eyes again. But this time, the heat in her stare had cooled. Not completely, but enough to say, "I see what you did." She blinked once. Then, without a sound, she picked up the cub in her jaws and vanished into the trees. Aaron stood there, stunned, breathing heavily, skin prickling with adrenaline. He hadn't been mauled. He hadn't even been chased. He'd been acknowledged. And in the wild, that meant everything. Over the next few days, Arun returned to the area, not to interfere, but to check if the cub had survived. He left food nearby, hidden under foliage, set up a motion camera near a tree, and waited. On the third day, the footage came in. The mother and cub, healthy together, feeding from the hidden spot. But the most shocking part? As the leopard approached the food, she paused, looked directly at the camera, and did nothing. No aggression, no hiding, almost as if she knew. It wasn't long before Arun began noticing a pattern. Every time he checked the site, the mother would appear in the distance, just for a second, watching, tracking, not attacking, and never with her claws out. Something had shifted. A month later, Arun returned to the site one last time. He crouched near a tree, scanning the horizon. This time, he didn't bring food, just curiosity. And then, like a dream, she appeared again. Not close, not threatening, but visible. The cub, now growing fast, tumbled behind her playfully. She gave a low chuff, soft, almost approving. And Arun, moved by the moment, simply whispered, "Take care of each other." In that quiet, a bond had formed, one that had no words, no names, just trust. Stories like this are rare. In a world where wild animals are often feared, hunted, or misunderstood, one man's compassion shifted the story, just enough to glimpse something deeper. Aaron never expected gratitude. He wasn't chasing headlines, but in saving the cub, he learned something no textbook could teach. Compassion transcends species. The leopard could have attacked. She had every reason to, but she didn't. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was recognition. But the result was the same, understanding. In that moment, fear didn't win. Compassion did. Arun now speaks to local communities about wildlife protection, not from behind a desk, but from experience. He tells children, wild animals aren't monsters. They're survivors. They fight for their young just like we do. And perhaps most powerfully, he teaches this. If you meet nature with fear, you'll be afraid. If you meet it with respect, you just might be surprised who respects you back. Today, that leopard cub is fully grown, still living in the same stretch of protected forest. Locals report sightings now and then, a flash of golden fur between trees, a familiar silhouette on the rocks. Some believe the mother has had another litter, that the cub is thriving. And while the wild remains wild, one thing endures. The story of a man who risked everything, not for a reward, not for recognition, but simply because it was right. His small act of courage echoed through the jungle, proving that coexistence isn't a dream. It's a choice. And sometimes that choice begins with a single step toward danger, a leap into a ravine, a hand extended to a trembling cub, and the quiet trust of a furious mother who chose not to strike. We often think of nature as something that must be conquered, but perhaps nature is asking us for something else, to listen, to respect, to believe in the quiet power of compassion. Because sometimes the most powerful bonds aren't spoken, they're felt, in the eyes of a leopard, in the silence of a jungle, and in the hearts of those who choose to care.